Okay, so welcome to this little quick video where I'm going to explain the wide angle lenses that I use for astrophotography. Not much the zoom lenses. This video is just going to be purely on the wide angle lenses that I use, because I pretty much use these wide angle lenses for most of my shots, as I prefer nightscape images rather than deep sky. So Samyang is pretty much the brand I use, and I'll go into detail of every lens in this video, so hopefully you enjoy and learn a thing or two about my lens choices for travelling around Scotland. Okay, so the first lens I'm going to talk about is the Samyang 14mm 2.8. So all my lenses are Samyangs. Other astrophotographers use Sony lenses and, you know, expensive lenses. I've just stayed with Samyang for pretty much my whole sort of astrophotography journey, and they're fantastic for the price of them. They're absolutely phenomenal. They're cheap. Roughly, I get all mine off of Amazon. You could probably get cheaper, but all my Samyang or Rokinon, they're called Rokinon in the USA and Canada. Don't know why, but they're known as Samyang here. They're around about £300–400 for each sort of lens. It just varies. The 14mm was £300 roughly, but yeah. So this is the first lens I'll talk about. Only go do a minute on each, but they're all Samyangs because I'm just a huge big fan of Samyangs. So the 14mm, the good things about it is, well, it's obviously very wide, perfect for like portrait shots and really wide angle shots. And sometimes, since it's so wide, the distortion can be a bit much sometimes if you're trying to get detail right in the corners of images. So if you've got the Milky Way like into the side of the picture, the Milky Way can kind of get distorted, or if you've got a constellation near the side of the image, it will get distorted. So that's probably one con to the 40mm, is it does distort quite a lot. f2.8, so it's relatively sharp, but one thing, good luck focusing it in the dark, because I still don't know where the focus is on it. You can focus on, like, say, a nearby house or street light or Venus or the moon. It doesn't have a true pin focus, so I still can't really focus this in the dark. But so you just kind of do a rough estimate focus. It's quite a stiff focus reel, which is quite nice. One of the other lenses that I'll do, their lens focus reel is very loose, so I'll talk about that when I get to that lens. This one's quite stiff, so it's good to get to the focus, but it's just hard to find where the focus is, as when you're focusing it really tight, it just seems to be tight for a while, and then it goes blurry for a while. So there's not an actual, oh, that's it, tight, and then it gets blurry. It kind of stays tight for a good long while. But yeah, fantastic lens, very wide, but distorts a lot. But I think I've had most of my really good shots have been with this lens, so highly recommend the 40mm. It's a Sony E mount, so it connects obviously to my Sony A7S. What else can I say about it? Perfect for time lapses and star trails, since it catches so much wide view, obviously. Vignetting, it does vignette just a wee bit, but I would say the vignetting's not much of an issue. It's just a distortion for this lens. So the distortion's the only downside I would have about this lens. The shadows are great. When you're taking a picture of something dark and you bump up the shadows, you can the shadows come with it, which is perfect. But since it's it's a fast lens at 2.8, but not the fastest. So I would, if you're using this for nightscapes, I would do a foreground exposure and then a wide angle exposure for the sky. Just because if you do a 30-second exposure, because it's f2.8, it's not that fast, so it's not collecting too much light. It collects enough light for the stars, but for the foreground I would do separate exposures. But it does hold the shadows really well, so it does fantastic in post-processing. There's no defects or anything. But yeah, can't go without this. Perfect for aurora, because it dances all over the sky. So that's the 40mm. So I'll start going to my newest lens, which is the 20mm. So my next lens, as I said, was the 20mm 1.8. I've only recently got this. I got this a month ago when I was going up to Norway, and I can't say anything bad about this lens so far. It's pretty good. f1.8 is pretty good for film and video. like of the stars, since it's really fast. It's relatively sharp. I would say it can be sharper. Like when you focus it, it's got a really stiff focus ring as well. Unlike the 24mm that I'll talk about, that focus ring is really slack. This one's really tight, so you can get really sharp focus. And the good thing about focusing this, the infinity point on this lens is right at the back of the focus wheel. So you get the start of the focus, and then you get the end of it, and it's right at the end. So you can focus this within 2 seconds without even looking at the stars. You just snap it right to the end. So as you can hear, hold on. So if you go right to the end, like there, you heard it wee click, that's it focused. Pretty much, it's right at the end of the focus reel, which is very handy. But can't say anything about it bad with this lens. It's pretty wide. So I got the 24mm was my favourite one. This is starting to become a new favourite because it's still pretty wide and well, it's wider obviously than 24, and it's fast as well. So nothing wrong with this. I've used this for a few time lapses, and the shadows are perfect in it. There's not much distortion at all. There's a tiny wee bit of distortion. I just would say the only thing that's a bit of a meh with this is it can be a tiny bit sharper. When you do zoom in, it's, let's say streetlights are a wee bit bulbous, so it can do with a tiny wee bit sharper. Probably if you put it to like f2, f2.8 or something, because you can move it. It just starts at 1.8. If you put it up to, you know, 2 to 3 f-stop, I bet you it will be sharper. I just use it obviously as the fastest f number, because I want to get as much light as I possibly can. But yeah, really wide, not much distortion, brilliant focus reel, fast, good for video. I've not seen any problems with it. Holds noise perfectly as well. That was another thing with the 14mm I forgot to say, is the noise on that can be a bit dodgy. If it's really dark conditions, that 14mm does struggle with noise. It does go a bit grainy, so you do have to do a foreground exposure, as I said, or stack images. This one's not too bad for noise at all. You notice it a wee bit, but a few stacked pictures gets rid of that noise. So that's a 20mm Samyang, obviously, and that market's at, how much did I get it for? 320, because it was only a month ago. £320, which is pretty good for an Astro lens in this day and age. So yeah, right, so I'll go on to my favourite lens now. Okay, so I just had a wee bit of a thought there. I'm actually shooting on the favourite lens, but I'll just review it whilst speaking, whilst holding this, because it looks like identical, the same. So what you're watching on is the 24mm at 1.4, and it looks exactly the same as this. Like 100% the exact same, but it just goes to f1.4, and it's 24mm, so it's really zoomed in, and it is by far my favourite lens. It is really sharp. Even at 1.4, it is so much sharper than the f1.8, which is weird. I don't know how it does it, but it's pin sharp. If you focus it right, it is absolutely pin sharp. It's brilliant for all my cameras, all my videos. This video is getting shot on it, and you can see the stars behind me. When I went to Norway, you could see the Northern Lights dancing behind me. That was all shot on the on the 24mm. It's just so it can see everything in the dark, the 24mm. It just, the only bad thing about it is, I would say the focus reel is, as I was saying, this one's really stiff. The 24 is really loose. It's, you know, you could kind of, I sometimes think if it's windy enough it can adjust the focus reel. It's just really loose for some reason. I don't know why. I've had it for about 2 years. Maybe it's just me using it for 2 years and it's just kind of worn out a wee bit. But it is really loose. But if you focus it right and you just keep an eye on the focus throughout the night, it does phenomenal images. Most of my really favourite pictures are with the 24mm. There's absolutely hardly no distortion around the sides. It holds noise really damn well. The shadows come out of nowhere. So if you take a picture in the pitch black, say if I took a picture pitch black now and I couldn't see the foreground, put it into Lightroom and boost the shadows and you will see the foreground. It holds so much detail, the 24mm. It is 100%, it was a wee bit more expensive because it's so fast and relatively wide. It was about £400, £450, but it is 100% worth it. Uses for video. I use it for the videos and for the photography. Obviously it's good for the panoramas since there's hardly no distortion, so the pictures stitched together really well on the 1.4. There's nothing really bad I can say about the 1.4. It could do a wee bit wider, it is quite zoomed in, but if you just do a wee panorama you get around the kind of tight in focal length. So yeah, so that's pretty much all the lenses I use. I do use a Sony, I'll get it, hold on, here we go. So I do use this lens, this is the only Sony lens I've got, and it's because it was a reasonable price. Sony 50mm 1.8, it's brilliant. I use this for aurora shots in Scotland since the aurora's around the horizon, and for noctilucent clouds. Fantastic. And I'll also use it for, you can't see it now, Venus is set, but see when Venus is near the horizon, I'll zoom this in and it'll make Venus look much bigger. It's good for moonscapes as well, but obviously 50mm, quite zoomed in, very fast, sharp as a pin as well. It's, excuse me, it is really sharp. It's good. Since it's a Sony lens, it works well with my Sony A7S, and I can kind of autofocus on it, and it just looks, it interacts with my camera much more better than the Samyangs, since the Samyangs are third party. Yeah, nice, compact, tiny. Focus reel's fantastic on it. You can focus it really sharp, and it's fantastic lens. That was only about £150. That's why I got it, because it was just brilliant value for money, really. So that's probably up there with my favourite. Probably I'd go with the 24mm 1.4 is the favourite, and then the 20mm 1.8 is starting to become near a favourite. I would say this is a close sort of third, and then it'll be the wide angle lens. So yeah, so that's pretty much all my lenses that I use. Hopefully you found something useful. It's just the way, that's the lenses I use. Obviously I've got a Sigma 150 to 600 that I use for moon shots, but that's a completely different genre of photography. But for the wide angle, that's what I use. Samyang, definitely, if you're looking for a wide angle lens, look for Samyang, because it's just brilliant value for money. The quality of images are fantastic. I'll put bits of B-roll and pictures up throughout this video, and you'll be able to see what the lenses look like in real time and what they actually look like. So yeah, so thank you for watching. Hopefully you found something useful out of this video, and hopefully next time you'll see me under the stars using these lenses. So yeah, thank you very much. Cheers.